Is the CEO of Inform HR. It's a human resources consulting firm based out of Tinton Falls. Christina and her team of HR business partners provide a full range of customized HR services, helping companies project and grow their business, including compliance audits, HR outsourcing, and training and development. Our second speaker, Renee Kurowski, PhD. Renee is the Director of Talent and Organizational Development at New Jersey Resources, a Fortune 1000 company and a leading employer in Monmouth and Ocean counties. She oversees the design and management of talent, learning and performance initiative, career developments, organizational surveys, sourcing, hiring, and onboarding of talent at NJR. She's committed to attracting and developing the best talent while building a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion, engagement, agility, and customer centricity. So I look forward to hearing both of their stories and what they have to share with us. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Christina to get us started. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I am going to provide some context for this discussion based on what we're seeing in the market and our client base. And then I'll turn it over to Renee, who is going to give some real world application that she's had at her organization. So I think it's going to be very fruitful for all of you. I'm going to start with, if my slides advance, give me 1 second. There we go. The agenda. So we're going to be talking about, you have the combination of, are we going to be fully on site, remote, or hybrid, which would be partially remote and partially on site. We're going to talk about employee and employer preferences, the pros and cons of each approach, how as an organization you can minimize exposure, and also how you can manage employees. I'm going to be touching on the managing employee part, and then I think that Renee is probably going to blow that out with a lot more real world experiences on that to show you how to keep people engaged and productive. So first I want to talk about workplace assumptions that we have seen over the past couple of years, right? So biases that employers have about the workplace. First of all, there's this assumption that if you are working in the office physically, you are working like a dog. You're working 24/7. I'm sucking all the productivity out of you dry, right? And you're also collaborating more as a team. You're interacting more, you're collaborating. And then if you're working from home, the assumption is that you're completely distracted, not focused, and not productive. You say you're on a meeting and really you're in the park. And I have to say, there's a little truth to this, to all of this, okay? It is sometimes a little easier to collaborate when you're physically face to face. There are sometimes more distractions at home. There are also sometimes more distractions in the office, and we'll talk about it. Also, I don't know how many of you have been on Zoom calls. I notice none of you right now are doing this, but I've been on Zoom calls where people are walking, and they're walking through the park like this on a Zoom call, or God help you, they're driving, right? So there is kind of that perception that, hey, if somebody's at home, are they really working? Now, these assumptions, as those of you in human resources and management know, you have to challenge assumptions with accuracy and data. So what is the data showing? First of all, those of us who binge on Office Space after a bad day of work, okay, you know that the data shows that just because somebody's working at the office physically doesn't mean that they're being productive. In fact, employees who work from home, we're showing a 60% increase in productivity. Now, yes, we have had many clients call us and say, we've got this employee, we think they need to be in the office, they're just not productive. We have certain people, because of their positions, their personalities, the way they work, that working remotely is not for them, and we will talk about that. But the data is showing that more than 60% of employers that allow remote work say that they're having an increase in productivity. So you've got remote employees at AT&T who are showing that they work 5 or more hours a week at home than their counterparts in the office. Sun Microsystem is saying that employees spend 2/3 of the time that they would have spent commuting doing work for the company. So 2/3 of that chunk of time that they would have spent commuting, they're showing more work going toward the company. You've got JD Edwards and American Express saying that their telecommuters are 25% and 43% more productive, respectively. And you've got Compaq, Best Buy, British Telecom, and Dow Chemical showing 45% more productivity. Now, as employers, it's not all about productivity. It's about morale, It's about what employees want, what we want, right? There has to be a give and take there. And again, when you look at the data, you see that more and more employees are wanting to be able to have a hybrid environment. So we know kind of before the pandemic, if you wanted to work remotely, for most people, that was a no-go. And now what the pandemic has shown is that working remotely is doable. Many people are more productive, and the data is showing that more employees want to be able to come in a couple days, work remotely, and play it like that. So basically where you're at is how the pandemic has changed expectations. As I mentioned to you before, remote work, pre-pandemic, about 7% of US employers permitted remote work. And we really saw that with our client base. So we are headquartered in New Jersey, but we have businesses. Our clients are in about 20 different states, and we have over 200 clients. So we see a plethora of small to mid-sized businesses, anywhere from 10 employees to some get a bit larger in the couple thousand. So just anecdotally, I can tell you that most of our clients did not permit remote work. And their feeling was that if someone's working remotely, how do I know they're really working? And now you've got about, and it depends on what stats you look at, about 42% of US workforce working from home. Certain industries are higher, and it might be 60%. Certain positions are higher, but that's becoming a little bit more of the norm. Also, for the pandemic has really changed stress. So we all know that we were coming into this, what they call the sandwich generation, where you had a lot of employees who had older parents that they were taking care of or looking after in some respect, and also younger children. And that was the stress leading up to the pandemic traditionally in the workforce. And what you've actually seen now is a lot more worry about juggling home and work, kids that might be remote schooling. You've got pre-pandemic anxiety was at about 8%, depression about 6.5%. And June as of 2020, it was up to almost 25% for both of them. And recent symptoms have been reported within the past 6 months for both of those for up to 36 and 41%. So obviously we're pushing a lot of our clients to have an EAP. Most of them do at the very least on a rider on, let's say, their dental insurance or something like that. But my point to you is you're facing employees that are used to working from home, are facing additional stressors, and have figured, you know what? I see family members getting sick. I see people dying. Life is short. I'm going to chase my dream. I'm going to do what I want to do. So you have more applications for new business coming up, and you see home sales rising. And all of us in New Jersey, because I think everyone who's on the call is in New Jersey, but you know the market's like crazy. And how many people have said, you know what? I can work remotely. I was working in New York City. I always wanted to live by the shore. I'm selling my house and coming down. Or saying, hey, I always wanted to move to the Carolinas. I always wanted to move to Florida. I'm doing this now. So what that leads to is that the reality of, you guys know the reality of finding talent right now is incredibly difficult. We were coming up into a labor shortage pre-pandemic. Baby boomers were retiring. There aren't enough of the younger generation coming into the workforce. Now you have the pandemic put a small hold on that. Now we're back to a labor shortage. And you also have an employee base that really wants to, quite frankly, have their cake and eat it too. It's an employee's market right now. It's hard to find talent. Every industry is predicting max exodus. So more and more, I hear people saying, we are going to be returned to the office 100%. I don't see that happening. I think employees are going to want to be able to have work-life balance, be able to come into the office and be able to work partially from home. And guess what? You can have your cake and eat it too as employers. Remember, you've got more than 60% of employers saying that employees are more productive at home. We've got 45% of companies saying that allowing telework has reduced turnover. And data shows that people who work remotely take fewer sick days and return to work sooner. So if you can have a cake and eat it too environment where people can work in the office, can work partially remotely, I'm kind of seeing that as the new benefit to be able to attract and retain employees. But And that's supposed to be one T, not the big but everything has a but, right? So everything has a yin and yang. As you know, not all positions are suitable for remote work. So you need to have a company policy about telework that says that you aren't necessarily having telework because it depends on the position. It depends on where the company is at the time. In some jobs, you need to be in the office. We have some positions where they're getting the checks and running them to the bank. They can't, those positions have to be in the office. Also, not all employees can handle remote work. Some people, and most people will tell you this straight off. They'll say, you know what, if I'm at work, my husband says this all the time. He's like, if I'm at home, I'm not going to be able to work. I'm going to be distracted. A dog's barking. I got to throw in laundry. And so he can't handle it. Me, I can handle it. I've done less housework on the weekends because right before I go to take a conference call, I throw in a load of laundry. It doesn't distract me, but to him it's distracting and some people can't handle it. Some employees prefer being in the office. This is where they get their social interaction. This is where they feel more engaged. It's just how they prefer to work. You also have remote offices. So listen, your company in the past, let's say all employees worked in New Jersey. Now the pandemic hit. So now they're working out of their home in Pennsylvania. They're working out of their home in New York. They decided that they want to move to close to their in-laws in Ohio. So they got an apartment in Ohio. Those remote offices now are your work locations. So if you are allowing a hybrid environment where people are working remotely outside of the state, you need to register to do business in those states and you need to follow what those states' employment regulations are, which can be, more complicated, different sick leave laws. And in different states like New York, you could have a different sick leave reg by state or by city. California, same thing. A California reg on, let's say, sick leave that might differ if you're in Los Angeles. So people have to be careful for that and pay attention to where employees are working. And also, there's some debate on if you do work remotely, what do I pay you? So New Jersey is typically on the higher scale of pay because it's an expensive place to live. But speaking of Ohio, I don't know what their metrics are, but I would guess every state in the union is less expensive to live in than New Jersey, pretty much. So now do you change what their pay is? So, and I've seen data where some companies are saying, no, it's just going to result in bad blood. We're one company, we're not doing it. And I've seen others say, listen, if these people are going to go fully remote and they are in a different socioeconomic area, we are not paying the same salary. So I guess my bottom line to all of you is that one size doesn't fit all, and you need to take all of these things into consideration, which leads us to my last section before I turn it over to Renee, which are the pros and cons of hybrid work. Because again, of remote and hybrid work, because I think we're going to be seeing more of this going forward. So you do have a lot of data showing that employers would want to work for a company that would allow some flexibility and that they would leave if there weren't flexibility in that. But we still need to manage the pros and cons. So the benefits of people working remotely is cost savings. This is the benefits for employers. So if you can get out of your lease, if you can downsize, you could have a significant cost savings there. You also have an increased talent pool. We just talked about how it's hard to find talent. Well, now you're not looking for employees just in Monmouth County or just in New Jersey. You have that increased talent pool. We can go out nationally and find the talent you need. As we mentioned before, you have reduced absenteeism. People are less likely to take sick days. Now listen, they may still be sick at home, but maybe they're sick and it's manageable. You wouldn't want them physically in the office going through a box of tissues, but they're at home going through a box of tissues, not on Zoom calls. You don't really care as much. So there's not as much absenteeism there. As we mentioned, there's increased productivity. We went over that. And there tends to be less office politics. I do a lot of non-harassment and discrimination training, and unfortunately, a lot of non-harassment and discrimination investigations. What I have found, and I say this all the time in my trainings, is that most employees are great when they're at their desk or at their production line doing their job. Where things go haywire is when they go to get a cup of coffee. They go to take lunch in the lunchroom. They go to get changed in the locker room. And then the gossiping starts, the talking about politics starts, and there's nothing you can talk about in politics right now that doesn't touch on some kind of protected class. So the idea that there's not as much office politics, there's not as much banter, can oftentimes be a good thing for employers. Now, the benefits of remote work for employees, there's less commuting time and cost savings on the commute. I mean, the wear and tear I've done on my car is nothing at this point. It's just amazing how much, yes, I'm still paying the car payments, but I haven't had to change out my tires. I'm just now redoing the brakes, saving on gas. It's a lot. There are fewer distractions sometimes working remotely. You know, less interruptions when you're at your office, potentially coworkers, doorbell ringing. It can oftentimes be a comfortable environment. I have one huge monitor at home. I've got 3 screens right here. I look like I'm on trading for, you know, on the stock exchange right now with all my monitors. It can be a more comfortable environment. And you can have better work-life balance. As I mentioned, I barely do housework on my weekends used to be predominantly housework. Now I can throw a load of laundry in. I can go take my kid for a quick bike ride instead of taking lunch. You have a little bit more work-life balance. So with every yin, there's a yang. Here are the cons and how you can manage them. The challenges of remote work, I just said to you, there can be fewer distractions at home, right? I just said than being at the office. However, there are also distractions at home. The dog barking when the UPS comes, the doorbell ringing because somebody's soliciting something, the kids asking for help with homework. All of these things can be distractions. There's less face time when you're working remotely. And let's talk about that. So we talked about the pro of that is there can be less office politics. There's a lot of downsides to less face time. First, social isolation. Some people need more face time. And some people at different parts of their lives need more face time. So when I was in my 20s, when I was younger, my office was my socialization. I'm in a very different period in my life right now. I go to work, and then I have other things I got to get done. So, and that isn't necessarily dependent on age or being married or having kids. It also depends on that individual and where they are at in their life and what their priorities are and how much of their interaction and activities are outside of work. But a lot of people can feel very socially isolated, and we had a lot of that during the pandemic. Tends to be a little bit less access to information when people are working remotely. Now, I've seen, and we'll talk about technology in a second, and then that'll be the end, and then I'll shoot it over to Renee. We do use Microsoft Teams, our company, but we don't use the chat function. I do have a lot of clients that use that chat function where they're constantly on it or have other chat functions. So there's less of a lack of access to information. What I have found is that that's incredibly distracting, right? So if I'm in the middle of processing your payroll, I don't want ping, 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 I'll get distracted. So I do have some companies, I'm sure Renee will talk about a little bit more about how they're sharing that information. But when you are working remotely, there are times when you can feel disconnected because you're not just, running across the hall to say, hey, did you get that memo? Or, hey, what's going on with this client? Or what's going on with this account? The big issue I see for managers now, and I wanted to bring this up, is the barrier to inclusion. Let's talk about this. There are some businesses, and we've seen, who have said, listen, if you get the vaccine, you can physically come to work. We're not going to mandate the vaccine, but if you don't get the vaccine, you're going to have to work remotely. There are some people that say, yes, this is awesome. I want to work remotely. But the downside is that sometimes having less face time can be very much a barrier to that inclusion. So, for instance, Dropbox's CEO, he said that he feels that hybrid approaches can perpetuate 2 different types of employee experiences that could result in barriers to inclusion. So basically, and where he's coming from, and the data has shown, is that typically the women, not always the case, are the ones working more hybrid or remote because typically they're handling more childcare responsibilities. So according to Gallup, 2.3 million women left the workforce in the past year compared to 1.8 million men. So where the Dropbox's CEO is coming from is the feeling that, is this going to create a divide where you will have certain demographics working more remotely? And then are they going to have the face time that can lead to more training, potential promotions, that type of stuff? So what they've done is they've done a virtual first environment, which basically says, listen, we meet at the office for meeting special occasions, but for the most part, we're virtual, because they feel that makes sure that everybody is inclusive. There are ways you can manage the team and the workload. You can schedule daily check-ins or have daily Teams or Zoom meetings. Definitely agree on communication expectations. When the pandemic first happened, we had clients flipping out because employees weren't returning emails on a timely fashion. So they wanted to mandate that the employees return to the office. And this was back when the governor had orders in place that said, if you can work remotely, you need to be able to allow your employees to work remotely. So I was saying to clients, were they responding to emails quickly in the office? Well, no. So it's not about if they're in the office or if they're remotely. It's about how you have scheduled the expectations around that. And that to me is the big thing, is what are the communication expectations and setting those. Provide a variety of technological options. So our team, I told you that we don't do Teams for chatting, but when we need something urgently, we text. That's not going to work for everyone. So everyone has different technological options. And make sure that you're providing for IT online support and security. Especially if you were at an environment before where IT was right down the hall, you want to make sure that your team that's working remotely has the IT support and definitely the security, especially given how much hacking has been going on. So you don't want them on, a home internet that isn't secure. And you want to coordinate opportunities for social interaction, whether that's a virtual happy hour or lunch or team meetings. Or what we did is, because we were virtually first, we would do a lot of our team meetings then at lunch, outdoors, during the nice weather. So we were still getting together and kind of having those team meetings. And I'm anticipating, I'm going to turn over to Renee. I'm anticipating she's going to have a lot more detail about what worked in her organization, because they've been remote for some time. And the last time she and I spoke, I believe they weren't returning to the office until January. I could be wrong. So I think she'll have a lot more of the meat on the bones to the points that I discussed here. But I really wanted to give this framework and then tee it up for her to go into a little bit more detail. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Renee.
Great.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Christina. As I transition into Renee's slides, I'd like to leave you with a quick question that maybe you could comment on, and it kind of goes in with challenges of remote work and it not being a good fit for everyone. But I think one of the issues we're seeing with some of our employees is being able to disconnect, and they always feel like they're on when they're working remote. And any guidance or suggestions you have for helping those employees, manage disconnecting as an employer?
Yeah, so we've had some clients put in parameters, and it has to be led by management, really, to not send emails at nights and at weekends. So if you're a manager or leader, to make sure that you're leading by example, not sending emails on nights or weekends, so that the perception from employees is that they don't have to respond right away, and making sure that you're communicating that to them, because that is the issue, right? Because most people know that my computer, the computer is right outside the bedroom or right down the hall. So I think that management needs to communicate those expectations and say, listen, just because we're working remotely doesn't mean it's a 24/7 workday. And then show by example, not sending those emails late at night and those types of things. I think that's the way to go with that.
Great. Thank you, Christine. And Renee, you see the presentation, hopefully.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Len. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Renee Kurowski, and I'm the Director of Talent and Organizational Development at New Jersey Resources. Thank you all for taking the time to join us for today's discussion on maximizing performance in a modern workplace. To begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about New Jersey Resources and then highlight how our company responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. followed by some best practices and tips for managers and employees working in a hybrid remote work setting. Beginning on slide 1, for nearly 70 years, our company has been keeping the customers' homes warm and businesses running. Today, New Jersey Resources is a premier energy infrastructure company comprised of 5 core businesses and over 1,200 employees. New Jersey Natural Gas, our primary subsidiary, provides safe, reliable natural gas service to our customers in Monmouth, Ocean, and parts of Morris, Middlesex, and Burlington counties. NJR Clean Energy Ventures is our clean energy business. NJR Midstream invests in and operates interstate pipeline and storage projects. NJR Energy Services is our wholesale natural gas marketing business, and NJR Home Services is our retail appliance services business. We're also a founding member of MODC and its work to enhance the business environment and quality of life in Monmouth and Ocean counties. Turning to the next slide, the outbreak of COVID-19 has been unlike anything we have ever experienced, and its impact unprecedented. In response to the global pandemic, we changed the way we do business, but not our commitment to our customers. As a lifeline service provider, our customers depend on us to be there to meet their energy needs no matter what. Across our company, our team rose to the challenge and continued to perform critical operations and meet our customers' expectations for safety, reliability, and service. Every step along the way, the safety of our employees and our customers was and always will be our top priority. Moving to slide 3, I'd like to discuss the guiding principles that drive our decisions during these unprecedented times. The decisions we make and the actions we take are driven by our responsibility for the safety of our employees and customers. That includes adhering to the guidance provided by the CDC and the state to mitigate the potential for transmitting COVID-19. Ensuring business continuity is essential. All non-essential employees have the resources to productively work remotely, and all essential employees have the training, equipment, and accommodations they need to be safe and effective in their jobs. Delivering safe, reliable service to our customers is our obligation. We are committed to providing our customers with the energy services they need for their homes and businesses. We make decisions collaboratively to develop a comprehensive approach to managing operations and mitigating the impacts of COVID-19. We work across business units to include diverse perspectives and input. Flexibility is critical. We must be nimble and be open to change as we work to balance the needs of our employees, customers, and company. As we look to return to the workplace, our approach will be thoughtful, well-planned, phased in, and always with safety as a priority. On slide 4, to navigate the pandemic, we have embraced these principles to great effect. We implemented our business continuity plan. We put in place critical action items that span the workplace and workforce, including enhanced policies, safety measures, cleaning protocols, communications, and numerous resources to support our employees working on the front lines in the field and those working from home. We updated our safety protocols, including field. We coordinated with our IT department to enable groups to do their jobs remotely. Today, approximately half of our workforce is working remotely. We also established regular company-wide communications, including Zoom calls with the CEO, Microsoft Teams meetings, email messages from members of our leadership team, and created an employee coronavirus resource intranet page, a central repository for timely, relevant information and resources for employees. We also implemented a Buoy Back with Care self-health assessment completed daily by every employee entering a company facility or customer's residence. From an HR perspective, we updated policy, including extending the use of vacation time because people could not take vacation, implemented opportunities to boost employee morale, such as holiday gift boxes containing Grubhub gift cards to support local restaurants, and personally signed notes from our leadership team. We also conducted surveys to gauge how employees were feeling regarding support, communications, resources, and collaboration. What is abundantly clear is the fact that without a healthy and functioning workforce, we do not have a healthy and functioning business. So every employee at every level of the company, from the CEO to the call center, shares a stake in executing our strategy. Turning to the next slide. With COVID-19 vaccines readily available, we are seeing restrictions are beginning to ease and a light at the end of the tunnel. Our focus is now on safely and seamlessly bringing our employees back to the workplace. To do this, strong leadership is critical. Leadership that is organized, proactive, strategic, and connects the pulse of our employees' needs, questions, and concerns. We created a detailed return to the workplace playbook, so every employee will be prepared and know what to expect. Communications, including town hall meetings, are being developed. Beginning after Labor Day, employees will return in phases, and we will adopt a hybrid work model to start. Our goal is to be safe, be smart, and to do it right. This is how we will ensure success. On slide 6, I would like to discuss how to maximize employee engagement and productivity in a remote hybrid workplace, and how we are tooling up managers to lead in a remote hybrid environment. With the pandemic, the work landscape has changed and will continue to do so going forward. Over the past year, employees who could do their jobs remotely did so, and did so effectively. As employees return to the workplace, some type of hybrid schedule, some days in the office, others remote, will be the new normal. We expect employees will return 3 days in office, 2 days remote to start. Of course, this will depend on the nature of the role and if it can be done remotely. Benefits associated with a hybrid work schedule include greater employee engagement, productivity, work-life balance, cost savings, talent reach, to name a few. Senior leadership's role in embracing and leading this change is key. Championing the new way of working and reinforcement of expectations and behaviors associated with these changes will serve to guide the rest of the organization. As managers, our role is to lead, manage, and create an environment for our people that support their success. With this in mind, a key strategy is to build manager capability for leading in a remote hybrid workplace. As displayed on the slide, key actions will serve as enablers to drive desired outcomes and leadership behaviors. These key actions include ongoing communications, training, role plays, tools related to leading in a remote hybrid workplace. Facilitated discussions to debrief learnings and share experiences, challenges, and solutions are also important. Key actions also include incorporating, reinforcing, and rewarding new behaviors in how we do work. We will support new ways of setting performance goals and behaviors. All of this will drive outcomes, which are leadership behaviors that will bring about success in leading in a remote hybrid workplace. Let me comment on each of these behaviors in the form of best practices, considerations, and tips. Be open to change. Embrace different ways of working and understand the benefits that may be provided for the company, the employee, and you. Lead with trust. Focus on outcomes. Understand employee needs. Remember, face time doesn't equal culture. Establish clear expectations. Be clear on responsibilities, deadlines, success metrics, just like you would in the office. Focus on outcomes and goals, not activities. Ensure ongoing communications and connection. It's very important to stay connected to your direct reports. This is important to assess how your team members are doing and what support they may need. This can be done in the form of one-on-one weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings. Be planful and intentional with respect to team meetings. Some might be in the office, others remote. Think through how to ensure employees are given the opportunity to contribute on equal footing. For example, proactively asking for input for those on the phone or on the video, along with those in the room. Flexibility and understanding are key with respect to what, if any, challenges the employee may experience. Remember to ask questions, listen, maximize coaching and performance conversations. To start, ensure these are done via video or in person to ensure the eye contact. Ask questions, give time for questions, seek stakeholder feedback. Managers should seek feedback from others that work closely with their direct reports. This is even more important now with employees working in a hybrid work schedule. You will not see everything firsthand, so seek the feedback to ensure a robust feedback or performance conversation. Let me move to slide 7. Another key strategy is to enable employees' success in a remote hybrid workplace. So the overall goal is to drive key behaviors that we as employees should demonstrate when working in a remote hybrid environment. Key actions are similar to the methods taken for building manager capability, but the outcomes are focused now on the individual employee. Key actions: how we communicate expectations to employees, how we role play leadership behaviors, providing the tools and resources. Incorporating desired behaviors in all that we do, reinforcing and rewarding them. Supporting new ways of setting performance goals to drive these behaviors. Outcomes and the desired behaviors include be organized about your day, your schedule, when you're in the office, when you're remote, what meetings are required in person. Be planful, be proactive in your communications, your updates, the connections you make, your work and relationships. Be flexible. Meetings or events may require you to adjust your schedule to attend in person when scheduled remote. Ensure accountability. Be accountable for your work. If you need information, support, or resources, for example, speak up for what is needed. Be part of the solution. Own your actions and your deliverables. Get results, whether on-site or remote working. Focus on getting results, meeting your deliverables, and helping the team deliver. Be a collaborative team member. Ensure you are reaching out, supporting, networking, answering questions, or lending a hand to maximize the performance of your team. High-performing teams communicate well together. They share information, they support and help one another. They understand that everyone contributes to the success of the overall team. Turning to the next slide. In conclusion, these are unprecedented times. Regardless of the challenges we face, our customers depend on us for their comfort and quality of life. To meet their expectations, our priority is their safety and that of our employees, because without a healthy and functioning workforce, we can't have a healthy and functioning workplace. The way we do business has changed, but not our commitment to our customers. We are committed to meeting their expectations for safe, reliable service every day, no matter what. To accomplish this, strong leadership is critical, and every employee must play a role to ensure continuity and continued success. Thank you.